2002 was a season of pure domination. Michael Schumacher and Ferrari stepped their game up to another level, leaving the likes of Williams and McLaren a very long way behind. It was a season that promised strong challenges from Juan Pablo Montoya and Ralf Schumacher, but a lack of aerodynamic efficiency from their Williams chassis trammelled the benefits of having a BMW engine which produced unprecedented levels of horsepower for a naturally aspirated V10. McLaren, on the contrary, had a neat MP4 17 chassis that was restricted by a powder puff Mercedes engine that was also unreliable and left David Coulthard and newly signed Kimi Raikkonen heavily frustrated. Renault returned as a factory team with Jenson Button and Jarno Trulli proving to be the best of the rest, but the gap between the top teams and the midfield blew dramatically in a year that rang alarm bells for the well-being of the sport. Ferrari won the constructors' titles with 221 points, exactly the same number of points as the rest of the other teams combined. Using the Crystal Score system, I have graded every participating driver with a score out of 10 for every race where they complete at least 75% distance. If a driver fails to finish a race because of a mechanical failure or an accident via no fault of their own, their score for that particular race is excluded from their season's average score and is considered invalid and void. However, if a driver retires from a very strong running position, i.e. leading the race or running in a podium position in a midfield car, a score may be given to reflect the driver's promising performance to improve their score. On the contrary, if a driver finishes a race well below their expected finishing position due to an incident, a collision or a late race mechanical issue through no fault of their own, their score will most likely be considered invalid and void. Any bad and unsporting driving, however, may see a driver given a low score to reflect their poor performance even if they fail to complete the 75% race distance. From every eligible point score, their scores are added up into an aggregate score and then divided by the number of races they achieved the score. For example, Fernando Alonso scores 70 points for his season's total score, whereby his score of 70 is divided by the 10 races he finishes. This gives him a crystal score average of 7.00. Before starting the countdown from the worst to the best driver of 2002, it must be noted that Anthony Davidson is excluded from this list. This is because he appeared in only 2 races at Hungary and Belgium, standing in for the struggling Alex Young, who was considered to be miles behind the standards required for the top level of motorsport. 22. Alex Young, F. Driving for Minardi since the 2001 Italian Grand Prix, Malaysia's only F1 driver to date delivered an anemic display of himself in his 14 months at this level. Backed by the national lottery company Magnum, Alex failed to qualify 3 times due to lapping outside the permitted 107% rule at Imola, Silverstone and Hockenheim. After achieving his best career finish of 7th at the season opener at Melbourne, Alex would find himself lapping on average 2 seconds slower than his rapid rookie teammate Mark Webber. The Malaysian was whitewashed 15-0 by his Australian stablemate, and his 3 DNQ saw him drop temporarily for Anthony Davidson, as Paul Stoddard stated Young needed to recover his confidence. Davidson, meanwhile, did an admirable job in his absence, lapping 0.06 seconds slower than Webber in qualifying for Hungary and Belgium. However, the Briton spun off in both races. Despite some improvement on his return in the last 3 Grand Prix, Young never raced in F1 again, but has achieved regular wins in A1GP and sports car racing. 21. Enrique Benoldi, D+. Driving a second season for Arrows proved to be a fruitless exercise for the Brazilian, who would be rewarded with unemployment sooner than expected. Only once did Benoldi outqualify new teammate Heinz Alfredson, who proved to be a much tougher benchmark than Jos Verstappen. Enrique would finish just 2 races at Monaco and the Nürburgring. In the meantime, he was forced to endure being disqualified for infringing procedures at Melbourne and then deliberately qualified outside the 107% rule along with teammate Heinz Alfredson at Magny-Cours to save spare parts at the team. Eventually, Hockenheim would prove to be Arrows' final Grand Prix appearance, and so too ended a short career of Enrique Benoldi. 20. Takuma Sato, C-. Japan's next big prospect proved to be rather green in his debut Grand Prix season, as he was prone to big mistakes and massive collisions. Having started racing at the ripe old age of 19, the 25-year-old was clearly lacking the know-how to deal with cars possessing over 800 brake horsepower, having won the British Formula 3 series in the prior year with cars with just a third of the power. Sato retired from 7 races, whilst his parent company Honda announced they would not be providing engines to Jordan from 2003 onwards. This left Takuma in a tough position, as it was clear Eddie needed a reliable driver to replace him, whilst BAR signed up Jenson Button to partner Jacques Villeneuve for the following season. Sato spent 2002 being outraced, outscored and outqualified by the experienced Giancarlo Fisichella by a significant margin. However, the season-closing Japanese Grand Prix provided home comforts, where Takuma scored his first points with 5th place. 2003 saw the Japanese prospect as BAR's test driver, where his new team now had exclusive use of Honda power plants. 19. Mika Salo, C. The returning Finnish veteran was back in Grand Prix racing after a year of testing for the new Toyota team, but his final season of F1 would prove to be a miserable farewell. In spite of a promising start of 2 points finishes at Melbourne and Interlagos, Mika's motivation was clearly slipping as he struggled to guide the Toyota through their first ever season. While Sato comfortably outpaced rookie teammate Alan McNish, team boss Uwe Anderson criticised the Finns' apparent negativity and punished both drivers with their P45s come the end of the season. 18. Pedro de la Rosa, C. 2002 proved to be an annus horribilis for the Spaniard, who never got to grips with Jaguar's flexing R3 chassis. The season saw relations between himself and Ford's head management becoming rapidly strained, as 9 retirements and no points left De La Rosa seeking a testing role at McLaren for 2003. Whilst bad luck colorised his 2002 campaign, Pedro was out qualified 10-6 by retiring Jaguar partner Eddie Irvine, who delivered one more great result at Monza before bowing out. 17. Alan McNish, C. Whilst he had little in the way of results to show for it, the 32-year-old Scottish multiple Le Mans winner produced a decent accounting of himself in his lone season in F1, whilst McNish was thrashed 15-2 by his illustrious teammate Mika Salo. Alan suffered 8 retirements and found himself unable to start the final race at Japan after a monstrous crash in qualifying. The Scotsman achieved a career best of 7th at Sepang, where a delayed pit stop scuppered his chances of a points finish. 2003 would see McNish spend the season testing for Renault as their Friday practice driver, where he contributed to their improved performances. 16. Nick Heidfeld, C. After a strong 2001, the 25-year-old German delivered a modest 2002 season. Heidfeld once again edged his younger teammate, this time Felipe Massa, but likewise it was perceived that his experience was provided him the upper hand. In addition, team orders at Hockenheim meant Nick was allowed to finish ahead of Massa, although rumours around the paddock felt this was done due to Sauber's lack of faith in the erratic Brazilian. Heidfeld saw the checkered flag 14 times in a 17-race season, but the days of him being held up as a hot prospect for top teams was quickly dissipating. 15. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, C. Despite making just 12 Grand Prix starts, the 35-year-old German made an inadequate appearance of himself. 2002 saw him race the wheels of his Arrows, but his team was struggling to make ends meet with their new but expensive Cosworth engines. Frentzen scored twice at Spain and Monaco, but dwindling funds meant no development could be done to achieve better results. Crushing his Red Bull-affiliated teammate Enrique Benoldi, it remains to be seen what Heinz-Harald could have achieved had Arrows had the funding to maximise the potential of its neat A23 chassis. Frentzen would return later in the season to deputise for the suspended Felipe Massa at Sauber, but finished a lowly 15th at Indianapolis. Frentzen would race full-time for Sauber in 2003. 14. Olivier Panis, C+. The Frenchman's second season at BAR proved to be lacklustre, with just 2 point finishes at Britain and Italy. The season started poorly as the Brackley team's 004 chassis suffered both oversteer and understeer throughout qualifying runs. Reliability was a headache as Panis retired from the first 7 races, so it was inevitable when relations between Panis and BAR deteriorated. Changes in management distracted the team from addressing their internal issues sufficiently, with Dave Richard replacing Craig Pollard mid-season. Inevitably, attention shifted to 2003 and Panis was replaced by Jenson Button. Olivier, however, had an ace up his sleeve and landed a seat at rivals Toyota instead. 13. Felipe Massa, C+. 2001 Euro 3000 champion entered F1 with many plaudits, but ended the season being the butt end of many jokes. 8 retirements was not what the doctor ordered, although Massa did impress when things were working well and scored thrice at Malaysia, Spain and Europe. Nevertheless, his on-track behaviour became increasingly erratic, and a needless collision with Pedro de la Rosa at Monza saw the Brazilian driver become the first sport in a driver's history to be punished with a 10-place grid drop penalty. However, this punishment was only applicable for the next race at Indianapolis and Massa himself, so Sauber were able to place their 2003 siding Frentzen in his seat for the US Grand Prix. 2003 saw Massa serve as Ferrari's test driver. 12. Mark Webber, C+. Australia's first driver to race at the top level of motorsport for 8 years made a fabulous account of himself, whitewashing teammate Alex Young in every metric possible. The 26-year-old immediately caught the attention of teams up and down the paddock with an awe-inspiring debut at his home race at Melbourne. He held off Mika Salo's significantly faster Toyota to score Minardi's first points in 3 years with a scarcely believable 5th place. Despite not scoring again, Webber replicated Alonso's dazzling speed from the previous season by out-qualifying Jaguar, Arrows and Toyota on occasions. Such performances were rewarded with a move to Jaguar for 2003. 11. Jarno Trulli, C+. The Italians' move to Renault from the fabled Jordan team gave onlookers the appearance of a sideways move, whilst Trulli held on to his reputation as a qualifying master. His race pace was not up to scratch. He was not helped that he suffered the brunt of Renault's reliability woes in comparison to teammate Jenson Button. However, it was not until the last 3 races where Jarno managed to get the upper hand in the races on the Briton. Eddie Irvine, number 10, B+-. 2002 was the Joosterman's final season of F1. Scoring an unrepresentative 4th place at Melbourne, 10 retirements in the next 12 races would scupper any hopes of progress for his beleaguered Jaguar team. An unidentified flexing issue with the chassis was found to be the culprit, but once this was solved, Irvine would score a point at Spa and then his final podium at Monza in front of the Tifosi who once supported him so fervently. Eddie Irvine beat teammate Pedro Della Rosa and had high hopes of continuing alongside Mark Webber for 2003, but he would lose his seat to Antonio Pizzoni post-Japan. The Northern Irishman tried to persuade Eddie Jordan to race for him instead, but Ralph Furman was chosen and Irvine retired from motorsports altogether instead. Number 9. Jenson Button, B. JB would see an upturn in fortunes compared to his previous season, but his relationship with Flavio Briatore continued to decline. Button outraced and outscored Jarno Trulli, but his lack of qualifying speed would again come under scrutiny. It therefore came as no surprise when Renault announced test driver Fernando Alonso as the British replacement for 2003, so Jenson quickly headed to BAE Honda for his next drive. Over the course of 2002, JB claimed 7 points finishes and scored 14 points and clinched 7th in the driver's standings. He was, however, unlucky to miss out on the podium in Malaysia, as a problem with his suspension saw him lose 3rd place on the last lap to a recovering Michael Schumacher. Number 8. Jacques Villeneuve, B. Whilst rumours over the Canadian's future continued to swirl from a return to IndyCar to a place at McLaren and Ferrari, Jacques drove solidly in what was a dog of a 004 chassis. JV and Olivier Panis struggled with mechanical and handling issues over 2002, with new technical director Jeff Willis slamming the inner layout of the car's electrical wiring and its gearbox design. Honda provided an underwhelming engine with poor drivability, and the team broke into the top 10 qualifying positions 8 times. Villeneuve took 6 of these top 10 starting grid slot and beat Panis 10-7 in the qualifying battle, but Jacques took the team's worst qualifying result of 19th at the Nürburgring. In the races, BAR's team leader was classified in the top 10 for 9 of the 10 races he completed, but it was only until the British Grand Prix either he or Panis finally scored points with a 4-5 finish that helped BAR salvage 8th in the team's worst season since 1999. Number 7. David Coulthard, B. After a promising 2001 where the Scotsman became McLaren's lead driver, the following season proved one of difficulty for DC. He was beaten 10-7 by new stablemate Kimi Raikkonen, but Coulthard finished ahead in the driver's standings with 41 points compared to the Finns' meagre 24 points. The 31-year-old benefited from superior reliability. However, he clinched a fortuitous victory at Monaco ahead of Michael Schumacher's rampant Ferrari. Despite signs that Coulthard was beginning to decline, everyone assumed a Scotsman would be McLaren's main challenger entering 2003. Number 6, Ralf Schumacher B. The 27-year-old German had acquired the 2002 campaign, which started with a bang with a calamitous collision where he leaped over Rubens Barrichello's rear wing at Melbourne. Sepang would see Ralf back to his best, though, as he clinched his 4th career victory after Michael smashed into teammate Montoya. However, Ralf found himself outraced and outqualified by his Colombian counterpart during the second half of the season, and the German took no poles positions, whilst Juan Pablo Montoya claimed an astonishing 7 poles. Nevertheless, the younger Schumacher brother finished 4th in the driver's standings, just 8 points behind Montoya despite his deteriorating fortunes. Number 5, Juan Pablo Montoya B+. Colombia's greatest F1 driver showed flashes of his raw speed and tenacious driving style, but he lacked the results to show off his prowess. Montoya started the season in style, where he excited the masses by dicing with Michael Schumacher at Melbourne before inevitably settling for second. Whilst Williams' FW24 chassis proved to be a lightning fast car over a single lap, the lack of aero efficiency and inconsistent Michelin compounds proved a headache and meant race victories were elusive after Malaysia. JPM's relationship with the team therefore became strained, and he became increasingly prone to temper tantrums. Regardless, he finished best of the rest with third in the drivers' standings, but no race wins was a huge stain on an otherwise decent year. Number 4, Giancarlo Fisichella B+. The Roman starlet drove the wheels off his underpowered Jordan, where he demolished his new teammate, Japanese Takuma Sato, with frightening ease. However, the yellow team produced an average chassis and Honda produced a poor power plant, leaving Fizzy dreadfully frustrated. 3 consecutive 5th places at Austria, Monaco and Canada, plus 6th at Hungary was all Giancarlo could muster, but it helped Jordan clinch 6th in the constructor standing, in addition to Sato's star performance at Suzuka. 8 retirements and a failure to qualify at Magny-Cours, albeit due to a major crash in practice, would restrict Fizzy's result, despite the Italian picking up 7 top 10 qualifying results. Giancarlo crushed Takuma 13-3 in qualifying when you exclude his DNQ at Magny-Cours, where Fizzy sat out qualifying thanks to his neck injury. Number 3, Kimi Raikkonen A. The Espoo native displayed devastating speed in his first season at Woking, hammering elder teammate Coulthard 10-7 in qualifying, but his massive reliability issues proved to be a major bugbear this season. 10 retirements plus a late race exit at Interlagos meant it was hard to see whether Raikkonen was overdriving or dealing with a difficult chassis and engine combination that proved third best over 2002. His races at the Nürburgring and Magny-Cours would prove Raikkonen was a star of the future, as he outdrove both Williamses and teammate DC to claim third in Europe and nearly won in France. Sadly, Kimi failed to spot oil from Alan McNish's stricken Toyota, and going wide at the hairpin handed Michael Schumacher not only the race win, but the German's 5th driver's title. Number 2, Rubens Barrichello A. It seems arbitrary to place the Brazilian in second, but it must be remembered that Rubens started the season with 3 consecutive retirements and 2 failures to start at Spain and France due to mechanical issues. Once Ferrari eradicated Barrichello's defective machinery, as he was forced to drive the 2001 spec chassis in the first 3 races, Rubinho claimed 4 wins, 5 seconds and a third to finish runner-up to his all-conquering teammate Michael Schumacher. Qualifying would see a major improvement as he took 3 poles and 8 front-row starts, but Barrichello's season would be marred by the events of Austria. Having taken pole and led the majority of the race, John Alesi called Rubens to give up the win, and the scenes on the final lap have to be one of the most disgraceful ever seen in a sport's history. Some may say the finish at Indy was Michael's way of handing Rubens back his win lost at the A1 ring, but it's safe to say we will never know. Number 1, Michael Schumacher, A+. With his opposition at 6s and 7s, 2002 would prove to be the crowning jewel in the 33-year-old maestro's mythical career. He broke Nigel Mansell's record for wins in the season with 11 victories and set the record for most points in a year with 144 points using the old system, which added points down to 6th place and 10 points for a win. The German finished every race on the podium, and only once did he fail to finish in the top 2, which came in Malaysia thanks to a collision with Montoya on lap 1. That spurred Ferrari to bring out the new F2002 for Interlagos, which set Schumacher back on track as Ferrari's strong all-round package and bespoke Bridgestone tyres helped the team set new records. With McLaren defecting to Michelin tyres, Ferrari were able to force the Japanese tyre manufacturer to adjust their compounds to the Italian team's requirements. With testing unlimited in this era of Formula 1, Schumacher and test drivers Luca Badoer and Luciano Berti were able to pound around the team's own Fiorano and Maranello circuits to perfect the 2002 chassis, with Ferrari ending the season with 5 consecutive 1-2s. The sports governing body, the FIA, began talks on changing the regulations to close the backup in order to avoid losing TV viewers in heavy numbers. So, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe to Crystal Racing, and I will see you again very soon.